Week 9 is in the books. Week 10 is upon us, which means it's that time of week yet again. These are my SEC Power Rankings entering Week 10 of the 2024 college football season. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us across all social media platforms as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. This segment brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. Go to mybookie.ag, use promo code SECU at sign up to receive a special welcome offer on your first deposit. That's mybookie.ag, promo code SECU to get your special welcome offer today. It's that time of week yet again as we take a look at my SEC Power Rankings entering Week 10 of the 2024 college football season as we pull up each of my selections. And we start at number 16, where there is a new team in the cellar. Welcome to the bottom of my SEC Power Rankings, Mark Stoops and the Kentucky Wildcats. Of course, Kentucky falling over the weekend to Auburn. And guys, this always to me felt like a game where it felt like the loser of this, we were probably going to find out, hey, who belonged in this number 16 spot. Guys, I don't know what happened to Kentucky after the Ole Miss game. I have no idea. I don't know if the Monstars took their talent. I don't know if Kentucky didn't make it back on the bus back to Lexington. But, I mean, guys, this team, it has been a shell of itself since that game in Oxford. And this team, it almost feels like, has just mailed it in and quit. I don't know what to think about the Mark Stoops experience anymore. It kind of feels like at this point it's run its course. But Kentucky at this point, guys, I don't trust them with anything I've got. I don't trust them to beat anybody left on their schedule. It gets no easier this weekend as they travel to Knoxville, Tennessee, and take on the Volunteers, a place they already never win. Probably going to get ugly up there on Rocky Top. And again, Kentucky at the 16 spot at this point in the season especially, it feels deservingly so, which what an incredibly disappointing season for Big Blue, a team that I honestly felt like could be a 7 or 8, maybe even a 9-win team this year. With their personnel, things have just completely fallen apart this season. Number 15, guys, I've got the Oklahoma Sooners. Oklahoma, as we expected for the most part, falling to the Ole Miss Rebels over the weekend. You saw some signs of life. Listen, the decision to fire Seth Luttrell, it should have happened weeks ago, but you did it. And all of a sudden, look in that first half, Jackson Arnold made some nice plays, made some nice throws. You actually had the lead on Ole Miss. But, of course, you get shut out in the second half. You can't hang on. Oklahoma staying near the bottom of our SEC Power Rankings at number 15. At number 14, guys, I've got the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Really disappointing showing from Mississippi State. I took State +7, thought this was a game in which, State could give Arkansas a run for their money and probably their best opportunity to win an SEC game this season, just depending on what happens Missouri down the stretch, if they get healthy or not or what have you. But Mississippi State with a golden opportunity, man, and just could not make the most of it. Couldn't even keep it a close game. You gave up over 600 yards of offense to Arkansas. The game is essentially over at halftime. Arkansas was putting belt to ass to you in Starkville. Coleman Hutzler, I think his seat should be warming up at defensive coordinator. But you just look at it again as Mississippi State, a missed opportunity on the home field. Again, they sit at 14 in our rankings. And number 13, congratulations to the Auburn Tigers for finding a way to win an SEC game. They move up to number 13 in our rankings. Guys, PSA to Hugh Freeze. Give the football to Jarquez Hunter. And when you think you've given it to him enough, and you say, you know what, this might be a good time to call a pass play and put the ball in Peyton Thorne's hands, go back to step one, which is give the football to Jarquez Hunter. 287 rushing yards for him in that game against Kentucky. He was absolutely fantastic. Again, you go on the road, you get a big win. It wasn't that I thought Auburn was incapable of winning the football game. It was just that we had not seen them do it up to that point. Auburn finally gets off the schneid, gets their first SEC win. And guys, a win that you could say this for both sides, but a win that Auburn had to have any chance to salvage the 2024 season. So good on you, Auburn. Good on you, Hugh Freeze. Good on you, Tigers fans, for finally getting to experience a win over a Power 4 opponent, the first Auburn got this season. At number 12, the Missouri Tigers come in on my SEC Power Rankings. Mizzou, Oh, boy. Missouri without Brady Cook might be the worst team in the conference. And that might be a little bit of over-exaggeration, but you saw it on Saturday, guys, against Alabama. They held tough early when Brady Cook was in there. He goes out, and, I mean, it was a bloodbath in Tuscaloosa. The defense did all they could, by the way, hanging in there. But it results in a 34-0 loss at the hands of the Crimson Tide. Extremely disappointing loss. I think pretty much everybody is checked out on Mizzou as being any sort of contender this year. I think college football playoff hopes have gone by the wayside. It's shocking to me, guys, and I know the offensive line's a problem, but it's shocking to me with how much personnel they had coming back from last year, how bad the offense is this year. It really does surprise me. And I'll just say this, and I don't care who hears it, how Missouri is still ranked in the top 25 is just, it's baffling to me. I mean, they've lost 2 SEC road games, I think, by 31 and 34, respectively. Guys, Missouri is not a great football team. To put them in the top 25, and I don't mean to, this isn't like a segment to take a shot at Mizzou, but this is not a top 25 football team, and I don't think that's a hot take. Guys, at number 11, the Florida Gators check in. They had the bye week, obviously got the big game upcoming. It's the Georgia Bulldogs. We will be there in Jacksonville for the cocktail party. Can DJ Lagway in the group, can they go in, maybe give the Dogs more of a fight than they're maybe expecting? The spread in that game is 16. Going to be interesting to see what Florida can do in that rivalry showdown. At number 10, I've got the Vanderbilt Commodores. Now, listen, I dropped Vandy maybe a few more spots than Commodore fans would like. Tough loss to Texas. You know, listen, I thought Vandy did a really good job of hanging in there against the Longhorns, and I think Vandy is a good football team. I saw some things from them offensively in which I think there's a couple front sevens that are ahead of them, a couple offenses that I think they may, on a neutral field, I think Vandy may have some trouble with. But this is a good Vandy football team, man. I will say that. Diego Pavia is a gamer. Again, the tough loss to Texas, you know, again, drop them down a few spots. They're at number 10. They're kind of in that mix right here where it's interchangeable the next 3 or 4 teams. But Vanderbilt at the 10 spot, falling to Texas at home. Now they've got the big one at Auburn. On the Plains, a touchdown underdog or so, and Hugh Freeze has struggled, to say the least, against Diego Pavia. He's never beaten him. So Vandy with a huge opportunity this weekend against the Auburn Tigers. At number 9, I've got the Arkansas Razorbacks coming off the throttling of Mississippi State. Taylon Green, Bobby Petrino, that offense, it's clicking, man. It's humming for the 3rd time this season. The Hogs with over 600 yards of offense in a game. Arkansas, like I've mentioned before, man, a dangerous team, dangerous ball club. I don't want to overreact to one win over a Mississippi State team that is 1-7, but still, when you got that type of offensive attack, it feels like Taylon Green is getting better and better and better week after week. They've got enough pieces with Travis Williams on the defensive side. I like this Arkansas team. Big one for the Hogs this weekend as they host the Ole Miss Rebels. That's right at a touchdown spread. Arkansas with yet another big opportunity. We're getting into the meat of their schedule now, right? You got Ole Miss, you got Texas, you got some big games down the stretch. Hogs with an opportunity. Really, November is going to define what they are in this 2024 season, but you got to love what you're seeing, especially on the offensive side in Fayetteville. At number 8, I've got the South Carolina Gamecocks. Carolina coming off a bye week. Again, speaking of big opportunities, they host a top 10 ranked Texas A&M Aggies team at night at Williams-Brice Stadium. You know that place is going to be an absolute madhouse, an absolute electric factory. Big question for South Carolina going into the final month of the season. What can you realistically generate offensively? You know what you have on defense, guys. You're a top 20 rush defense in the country. I believe you're a top 30 overall defense, and I may be selling you short. I don't know if that may be. I think top 30 is where you are overall, but I know you're 16th in the country in rush defense. The front seven is going to give you a shot in every single game. What can Lenoris Sellers give you? Can you stretch the field vertically at all? You know you've got Rocket Sanders back there. You know what Lenoris Sellers can do with his legs. The growth and maturation of Lenoris Sellers, how far he comes, is going to define what South Carolina can do in the final month of the season and really define their 2024 season as a whole, sort of similar to Arkansas, a team we just talked about. So the Gamecocks coming off the bye, their chance at a signature win, by the way, 2 conference wins at this point over Oklahoma and Kentucky, the bottom 2 teams in our power ranking. So that Texas A&M game certainly big-time opportunity at Williams-Brice. Number 7, guys, I've got the Alabama Crimson Tide. Again, they get the big win over Missouri, the shutout win. Really, guys, that was a game that Alabama just needed to have. It was that type of win that Alabama desperately needed to have. So good on the Crimson Tide. Jalen Milroe looked good in the game. I love the physicality from Bama, right? Jam Miller, Justice Haynes, the way they looked rushing the football, and obviously the defense was suffocating in that ball game. They go into the bye week before the epic showdown in just under 2 weeks against the LSU Tigers in Death Valley, in Baton Rouge. Going to be a classic. At number 6, guys, I've got the Ole Miss Rebels. Again, Ole Miss getting the big win over Oklahoma. Did some things in the second half I really liked. I think Jackson Dart is probably the most consistent quarterback of the big guys. I mean, he hasn't done anything crazy, and they've been they've been really underwhelming offensively. 4 straight games scoring less than 30 points, but finding ways to win. Ole Miss just sort of hanging around. They've got a big test this weekend, of course, at Arkansas. Like we mentioned, the game against Georgia is upcoming in a few weeks as well. So that one won't mean as much if you can't take care of your business in Fayetteville. But if they can, certainly Ole Miss is still right in the thick of this playoff race. Will they get Trey Harris back? Does the offense continue to come along? It's there defensively. Also, keep an eye on, hearing some rumblings, Walter Nolan may not go in the game against Arkansas. How does that affect this Ole Miss team? But either way, for right now, number 6. And number 5, the Tennessee Volunteers coming off of their bye week. And you may notice, by the way, Tennessee, yes, slid down a spot. I know they were in the bye, but guys, with the shuffling at the top of the power rankings, some teams having to move up, some teams need to move down, Tennessee effectively did slide down a spot. Still really high on the balls. Obviously feel good about Tennessee moving forward. These next 2 games against Kentucky and Mississippi State before the Georgia game, it's not about does Tennessee win. If they don't win, there's major issues. They should win. It's about how does it look, right? Is Nico able to use that second half he had against Alabama and progress and improve and live up to a lot of the hype and be the guy that I think Tennessee fans expected him to be at the start of this season? That's really what I think the next 2 games, that's what you're looking for. Tennessee should win. Tennessee should probably win comfortably in both games. Dylan Sampson's going to run wild. The defense is going to be dominant. But what does Nico look like? That's the big question in the next 2 contests before you go to Athens in a few weeks and try to take down the Georgia Bulldogs. At number 4, I've got the LSU Tigers. Obviously, LSU falling over the weekend in Kyle Field. Listen, I don't think the sky is falling. I think LSU is still a really good football team. That game against Alabama essentially becomes a playoff eliminator. Of course, LSU also with the bye week before the game against Bama. Garrett Nussmeier, man. I mean, there's multiple reasons. There's multiple things to look at with LSU. Number 1, the physicality, right? I thought A&M was just more physical than you. They beat up on you. They leaned on you. Also, it was very obvious you weren't prepared for Marcel Reed. We can all agree at that. But for this team to reach its potential, and I don't know if this is fixable. It might just be the kid is who he is. And Garrett Nussmeier, when he's good, is one of the best quarterbacks in the conference. Guys, the first half against A&M, I would have told you he was probably the best quarterback in the SEC this year. But what you saw is the roller coaster ride that is Garrett Nussmeier. He's a good player, but the turnovers are killer. They're killer. He's the guy that throws 100 miles an hour, but he doesn't know where it's going, right? And those inconsistencies, LSU's gotten away with it, right? You saw bad throws against Ole Miss when we were in town in Baton Rouge. You've seen that plague him. You can't always get away with it. You especially can't get away with it on the road in the SEC. He made some ill-advised throws in that game late in that second half that cost LSU dearly, and they fall to number 4 in our power rankings. And number 3, guys, I've got the Texas Longhorns. Now, listen, I don't typically like moving teams down after winning a game, especially when you win a game on the road in the SEC against a ranked opponent. That being said, when teams behind you do certain things that they deserve to be rewarded for, I take that into account. Also, the way Texas is playing right now versus the way the 2 teams in front of them are playing right now on a neutral field, I don't know that I would pick Texas. I would not pick Texas against the 2 teams in front of them right now. A good win against a scrappy Vandy team, a game against Vandy in which Texas had opportunities to pull away. Probably should have pulled away. You give Vandy a lot of credit. The offensive line still needs work. I think Quinn Ewers was fine in the game. I don't think he was great. I think he was fine. I mean, at one point, guys, he completed 17 straight passes. I thought he was good. He wasn't great, though. And it's interesting how Texas fans, it seems like they're wanting more, they're wanting more, they're wanting more. I don't know if it's they're hungry for Arch Manning or Texas fans are unsettled watching A&M doing what they're doing, which we'll get into in a second. But I think Quinn is fine. I think Quinn is pretty good this year. You do at times watch him and say, it feels like there's another gear to it we're just not getting for whatever reason. But all in all, good win, successful weekend, your first true SEC road win in program history. That's something to be proud of. Some things to shore up. The defense was dominant, by the way. Really just need to shore up the offensive line in the running game. I thought everything else, especially with no Isaiah Bond, no Andrew Makuba, I thought everything else was really solid for Texas and Nashville. Number two, guys, I just mentioned it, the Texas A&M Aggies. I'm finally drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm finally drinking the Kool-Aid when it comes to Texas A&M, man. Listen, what the Aggies did against LSU was impressive. And inserting Marcel Reed, it changed this football team. He's got to be the guy moving forward. He has to be the guy moving forward. Bottom line, point blank, end of discussion. I don't care what Connor Wigman looks like in practice to win the job. You see the games. And Marcel Reed, the dynamic he brought to the offense, the way he was able to run the football, made some beautiful throws down the field when he had to throw. Only threw 2 passes. They were both beautifully thrown balls. I think you got to go with Marcel Reed moving forward. Now, again, Texas A&M, huge winner for LSU. I mean, guys, the way they dismantled LSU in the second half, wildly impressive. That's the reason I moved them up. It was wildly impressive. I did not see that coming from A&M, if we're being totally honest. But now here comes the South Carolina game. And this is typically the one that Texas A&M loses, right? Win big games, compete against the upper echelons, but then you go on the road to a place like South Carolina. And I know they've beaten South Carolina virtually every time they've played them outside of one, but I'm just saying there's always that game for A&M, it seems like, where they fall short, where it feels like they shouldn't. This is going to be that game. A&M with a really tricky spot in Columbia against South Carolina. Going to be interesting to see how they respond from the big win against LSU, and I think A&M catching a lot of hype this week as well. And number one, guys, they were on a bye week. I've got the Georgia Bulldogs, still the best team in the conference. Again, going into that cocktail party against Florida, should be a Georgia win. You never know in a rivalry game. They're 16-point favorites, though. But Georgia, of course, coming off the bye, not going to move them out of the top spot. So, guys, that being said, that is my power rankings heading into Week 10. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? How would you power rank the teams of the SEC after 9 complete weeks of play? Guys, that's going to do all for me. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in again. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get those. You can also find us across all social media platforms as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. Until next time, guys, I'm Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we will catch you on the other side.